Oh, hello everyone, it's Susie again from Esoteric Trading Solutions. Just on my series number 2, in pursuit of the best coins investment or token for the next 2 years. The reason why I decided to do this is because everyone seems to be so anti-Ripple, and I really feel that Ripple is the best of breed coin, simply because of the technology, but also because of the client base that it's got. And it's actually got money in the bank, and it delivers on exactly what it says. Basically does direct, fast, real-time gross settlement within a couple of seconds, 1,500 to 2,000 transactions per second. So I really wanted to start looking at all the coins in detail and categorise them and really go through all the different coins and really see if there is anything out there like Ripple. So this is series 2A, and today I'm looking at Dash and I'm looking at Monero. And Dash and Monero, as you know, are two private coins, privacy coins, and basically they are obviously distributed ledger and the like, but Dash pretty much says that its main advantages are it has master nodes, instant send, private send, is self-sustainable, decentralized government, strong community, very good governance system, and they do have a consensus. And I do agree, look, an advantage is consensus, because certainly Bitcoin doesn't have it, that's for sure. And Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, the fork, SegWit 2 times and all that sort of thing, and there's been a lot of fighting between the different developers and the miners over Bitcoin. That's an absolute fact. So yes, that's an advantage of Dash in the sense that they do have full consensus. Again, they do say they are private, that you can do transactions through Dash and your privacy is maintained, and that you can basically, no one can actually find out your privacy. And essentially you can do that, and it's a self-governed model, and effectively they self-fund themselves. So every time they do a transaction, the master nodes, which are basically owners of those master nodes, get a percentage of the transaction, which is 45%, and 10% goes to the treasury function, which is not a bad system in the sense that the treasury function is actually used to develop ongoing, technical protocol of Dash, and basically keeps everyone incentivized, as well as the master nodes who own or process the transactions through the system. They basically also get, a part of getting paid. So it sort of incentivizes everyone. It's very different to the Bitcoin situation where you have basically the network being performed by miners. Dash utilizes a two-tier network system where the network functions are created. They create blocks, and then there's a second network function that consists of master nodes which perform the private send, instant sends, and the government governance functions. So it is in some ways a better model, that they're not reliant so much on the miners. They do have this second tier process, which is probably not bad, but there are some disadvantages to the master nodes as well, which we'll go through. Again, master nodes require about 1,000 Dash as collateral to prevent civil attacks, and there is some collateral for that, and they do need the master nodes for the network. So they basically provide vital network function, and the block rewards are split between the miners and the master nodes, so hopefully everyone's on the same page. So each group earns about 45% of the block, and 10% goes to the treasury function, which is basically like a self-funding pool that Dash uses to hire additional employees and developers that basically look after the new technology for Dash and the protocol for Dash. So if you look at this little chart here, it's very small. I'm sorry about that. My apologies. But Dash transaction fees are a lot less than Ethereum's and Bitcoin and Monero. So the transaction fees are very small, and they do claim that they can do a normal transaction with 2.5 minutes, and they can do an instant send straight away. But when you do read things on the internet in terms of Reddit and people's experience with Dash, a lot of people actually said that the transactions take up to 5 to 10 minutes, and you're basically waiting for the block to be processed by the miners and by the master nodes, and sometimes it can take up to 15 minutes. So what Dash supposedly says is what they do is probably two different things. So I suspect that it's probably longer than that. The fees are very low, so if you do send an instant send via their instant send or their private send, it's 0.001 Dash, so that is an advantage, fairly low fees, and obviously their instant send hopefully works instantly. It seems like it may, but again, you've got to tell it an instant send, because if you just do a normal send, it doesn't happen in the 2.5 minutes. It seems to be the case. When we do look at the disadvantages of Dash, I come up with a lot more than the advantages, even though it's supposedly a private coin. The reality is it's not a private coin, because governments can trace the identity of the person behind the transaction, and there have been instances where they've and they're not going to tell you how they do that, but there has been instances where they've found that people use Dash and they've found the owner of the coins and the transaction, and they've asked them to repay those coins back, or they've taken those coins off them. So the reality is Dash is not private. People are buying the coin, they think it's private when it's not. It can only process it only has 1 MB, and can only process about 28 transactions per second. Ripple again can process 1,000 to 2,000 per second instant cross-currency swap settlements and the like. So some of the disadvantages of Dash, other people say that its name. They do have hardly any merchants, and they don't do a lot of transactions. So I don't think Dash, in terms of what Ripple does, would be anywhere near what Ripple does. In a space of 3 months, from April 2017, Dash only did about 3,000 transactions. Bitcoin did 171, and Ethereum did 76,000. So it seems to me that Dash is fairly small. To me, it seems very overpriced if it's around $435 or something. I just cannot understand why the price is up here. It's beyond me. Yes, they have 19 million on issuance. Probably the circulating issuance is about 16 million, because the people behind the technology, basically the master nodes do have some of the issuance. So that's probably why they don't have a lot of issuance out there. The circulating issuance is probably about 16,000, because the master nodes do have some of the Dash coins. So the reality is Dash doesn't have a lot of merchants that use Dash. They don't have a lot of people that use Dash. So, and also when they do upgrade the system takes for so long to upgrade that some of the things that they pride themselves on, like private send and instant send, don't actually work. So, I don't think it's a great coin at all from what I've seen of it. And unless someone else has got something they want to say to me, I can't believe that the prices are where they are, because it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But anyway, maybe I'm just dumb or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But Dash also sells itself on saying that it is private, but the reality is it mixes the transactions using master nodes, and basically mixes those transactions from different master nodes. And apparently it's easy to find tools to unwind this kinds of mixing, which has already been developed, and it can work. It's been developed for Bitcoin, but it also can work on Dash technology as well. So it's really easy to find out the owner of the coins and the owner of the transaction. Dash has a large marketing budget and a large spend, which I don't consider as being innovative at all. And again, as I said to you, the coins that are circulating, it's not the full issuance, because the master nodes do hold a lot of the coins. And as Dash becomes more expensive, as the price of Dash goes up, the master nodes make more money, but also the master nodes themselves become more expensive. And there is a risk that the master node owners could actually start selling their own systems, and because they're becoming, quite expensive, and sell out. And maybe that may not be good for the technology of Dash, because you actually have master nodes changing hands. Again, 19,000 coins, but the circulation's a lot smaller, and that's probably why the coin does get bid up quite quickly. The master nodes are prone to DOS attack, and there have been a couple of DOS attacks in the past. And again, as I said before, Dash is not private. It doesn't employ end-to-end encryption. Governments can track users and identity. They can close down the internet site by forcing the international service providers to keep a list on banned sites. And so the reality is, if that was the case, you wouldn't be able to connect the Dash site or the Monaro site. So I see this being a huge flaw in the coin of Dash, in that it's not private at all. Without end-to-end encryption, governments can track down the origins of the transaction and identify the users, and basically anyone that's monitoring the network can see across the chain and find out exactly who's who. So I just cannot understand why people see value in this thing when it's actually not private. A coin that is private and is absolutely in private is Zencash. It does have end-to-end encryption, and it's impossible to basically follow communication channels across the blockchain. But this thing, Dash, is not private at all, and you'll find that with Monaro as well. So without end-to-end encryption, anyone monitoring the network could see traffic across all the blockchains. So I think that's a huge disadvantage of Dash, particularly when it sells itself as being a private coin. Again, let's have a look at Monaro. Monaro pretty much is the same. It lauds itself in being a private coin. Effectively has 18.4 million coins in supply. It's a proof of work, basically a digital currency. It says it's private and untraceable, which is absolute crap. Again, we'll go through it. The transaction fees, as it says here, are 0.004. But if we go back to our chart, excuse me, transaction fees for Monaro are more expensive. They're just behind Bitcoin. They're more expensive than Ethereum, so they're not cheap. Transaction fees, are heading up towards $2. So again, let's just go back to Monaro. Supposedly advantages of the Monaro, and that's why I've got supposedly. Essentially, it's private, untraceable, and secure, and it's built on crypto note protocol. Monaro uses ring signatures, ring confidential transactions, and stealth addresses to obscure the transactions at protocol level. So effectively, it issues ring settings, group of users, and a set of keys that can confirm a transaction without revealing which user made it. Total coin supply is 18.4 million, and it does use proof of work. And the main technical thing behind Monaro is a balance of allowing the user to control their keys and operate privately within a security mechanism. So again, they say they protect the sender with ring signatures. The sender can reveal just enough information for the miners to confirm the transaction without disclosing publicly the total amount spent. This allows the transaction to be validated and as authenticated without losing the privacy of the user. That's supposedly the advantages of Monaro. Again, if we go back and look at the disadvantages of Monaro, they want to be an untraceable digital cash coin, but the reality is Monaro does have a lot of drawbacks, and you'll find that Monaro is not private and it is traceable. It does have an inadequate funding model if we compare it to Dash. It doesn't have like a treasury model where a percentage of the fee is put back into technology. So it basically relies on developers donating their time, which is a big negative if developers have to do that, because it means that every developer's busy. They earn a lot of money developing other technology, and they're not going to really want to basically spend time trying to develop Monaro's Monaro's technology. So they're not really paid to improve Monaro's technology, so it's not great. Again, if you look at other coins, Zcash has a funding model as well, and it's a very good one. And also Zencash is truly private. So another drawback of Monaro is they're not fully secure. These coins are not anonymous as they advertise. Effectively, they don't have end-to-end encryption, which is a real problem. So messages that are sent can be read and can be eavesdropped. The reality is the network, if you know anything about technology and you have that experience, you can actually monitor the network and see all the traffic across the blockchain and actually, literally find out the origins of that transaction and the identity of that user. Now, we did see a reality of this in 2016. Federal law enforcement agents seized nearly 12,000 Monero coins, and there have been other situations where they've told people, to give coins back because they believed they were from, the illicit proceeds of prostitution or drugs. And the reality is, how did they find out where these coins were, or how did they find out who the identity of these coins were? The truth of the matter is the government has ways of finding out the identity of those coins, who are the owners, and they're certainly not going to tell you how they do that. These coins are traceable. They do know how to find out the identity of people, and your privacy is not insured. And they've also done it with Zcash. The late Alexandra Kazis, who apparently was a drug dealer, again, was seized upon and basically had to give back certain coins as well. So the government has shown up a couple of times when a coin is private, but they know exactly who owns the coin and where it sits, which is pretty interesting. Another drawback is the coin itself, the access to the coin or the website can be easily blocked. Now, we've seen that in Russia, we've seen it in China, and all the government has to do is, like in America, for example, enforce an internet service provider to keep a list of banned sites and to stop people from accessing those banned sites. And that's really, really easy to do. Now, if they do that, you can't get into those sites, whether it be Monero or Dash. Now, again, when I talk about Ripple doesn't need exchange systems or anything to be able to get in. They don't need external third parties. So, again, and Ripple certainly don't make up that they're private. So it just amazes me that this crowd, Monero and Dash, say they're private when they're actually not. And their prices, Monero's is $120 US, and Dash is around, 430. I can't understand it. But that's just how I see it. So again, these both these cryptos, there's a huge flaw in them. They're not privacy coins at all. They're only designed to handle the transfer of money, and the reality is they don't even do that well. It looks like, it takes 2.5 to 15 minutes to transact. Dash can transact 26 transactions in about 15 minutes. It looks like Monero does a lot less than that. It's not a great story, and again, they're not private and it's not instant. Yes, Dash has the instant send, but it does cost you money. But these coins are not private by any stretch of the imagination. So, it's all a big negative the way I see it. If you read Reddit as well on Monero, they do say that they can transact within a minimum of 2 minutes, but, everything I've read just on people's comments and on doing any sort of transaction with Monero, one person I read, it took them up to 12 hours to get a transaction done, which I found incredible. Again, even, I've heard that the technology, even to use on your phone, is difficult, that the wallets don't work. It's hard to find any wallet where, you can hold Monero coins, that sort of thing. The IP addresses aren't private. People can actually work out where they come from. Again, the majority of the mining pools is for things are just really slow. So I don't think it's a great story at all. There's not many people that use Monero coins, hardly any merchants that use them, and really they're just a payment service. I mean, it sounds like to me you could get a payment service done quicker if you use your Visa card. So again, I don't think both these privacy coins are a great story. So just going through, as I've said, very, very limited. They're not what they're made out to be, and again, huge flaws the way I see it. And my conclusion is, after looking at these two, Ripple is still a better coin. Thank you for this. I hope I haven't raved on for too long, but I hope this helps. And live well. Good night. Bye, Susie.